that I'm talking. So give me 1 second. I'm doing that. We usually have a full house, and in the last 30 minutes, I had just text after text after text. Yeah. But usually if I change the space, right? When you change the space, you change the energy. And the space changed for the people. Okay. Done. Good. So I do have, like I said, I have these plasma on. You might feel it. At a certain point, I'm going to turn it off. And so just so I can share with you about the plasma, these tubes are spun in phi ratio, which is 1.618. It's the golden mean spiral. So the easiest way that we see that golden mean spiral is in, your ear. It has a really good vision of it. Certain flowers, you're going to see it when you're seeing like a flower growing or a vine growing. Sometimes you're going to see that natural golden mean spiral. But it's everywhere. And the gravity is defined by the golden mean spiral in ether. So the reason things fall to the ground is because it's going down that fractal of a golden mean spiral and gliding down. So these tubes are beaming photonic light, and it's made by noble gases, a mixture of noble gases in these tubes. So, like I said, I'm going to leave them on just for a little bit, but I don't want you guys to get too relaxed just yet. So I may turn them back on during our meditation. But it's filling the room with light. Can you feel it?
Feels good.
Right? Feels good. If you're sensitive, you may feel it.
I feel it in my teeth.
I just felt it in my teeth. So we can use that light just like when we're laying in the sun, or we're getting a Reiki treatment, we're using that light to fill up our cells and our DNA with light. So just realize that when you're breathing in, you're taking in that light on the wave of the breath, but also just in the cascade through your body, you're taking that in as well. Madette, what are you feeling?
Huh?
What are you feeling?
I'm feeling, I didn't realize it. I was feeling like this intense heat, and I thought it was me. And then when you said that, I'm like, oh, I'm sitting right in front of it. So of course I'm going to feel this, like, oof, just energy, heated energy.
So you feel it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's picking up the sound frequency. So this is a sound frequency. It's a stereo system, but it's also connected to, it's actually called quantify, these smaller tubes. And it's taking those frequencies in and literally are vibrating those light particles. So I have the God frequency on right now, playing through it. So it's got that 963 hertz or 936 hertz coming through the field, which is a very high frequency. So I'm actually going to turn them off now because I can really feel it. But like I said, I will probably turn it on during our meditation. But what's cool, wonderful about this is that it's actually, like I said, fills up the room with light. So it's a great way to condition a room and make it be healing.
Reiki was the way I used to clear rooms.
Reiki, yeah, right? Like sending light into the room. Yeah.
It was just like instant. All of a sudden, I was like,
right? So it's pretty amazing how you could feel it from so far away. Really? Meaning, well, go ahead.
I mean, literally, when you unplugged it, I just felt like the whole thing just, and I'm like, oh, where'd it go?
Huh. So typically I had it set up over there where you would lay in the massage table and it would, it's great. This system is great for like spot treating places and bringing the exact frequency in, which might be fun to play with on your leg, for the exact frequency that body part area, whether it's an organ or the area of the body that it would request that balanced frequency. But as you can see, even with it being far, you're able to feel it as well as you are expanded. You're a big being and you could be like feeling it just because you're expanded in your field. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about being expanded in our field. And, typically in the natural aura, the natural 6 foot, so 3 foot this way, 3 foot this way, and our energy coming down our central channel and up our central channel, when we're like condensed or not condensed, when we're kind of aware of our energy, you might see people like cross their legs or cross their hands or take a certain hand mudra. You're really intending to be just in your field. Here's my prof. And so when you're aware that you want to bring your field in because you're in a big space, a lot of people, or you're in a small space, you're in an elevator. This is a lot of time when I get in the elevator, my hands immediately will go in a hand mudra and, I bring my energy in. You're still essentially this big soul, but sometimes when you're in a small space like that, you may even notice like you kind of hover and your soul gets out of the body slightly and is almost hovering above the avatar body while you're in a small space.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
It's like, some people call that protection, but it is in a way, it's maintaining the base of your energy.
Yes, 100%. And so there's 2 ways of looking at this. One way is like I pull in, I gather protection, I put myself in a way that's kind of like root locked and locking my field. And that's a great way. And then there's the way as you evolve, I noticed that you then let go of all protections. You let go of all bringing your aura in tight, and you just expand in the wholeness and the greatness of the one, right? And by being in the one, you trust and allow, then you allow yourself to be connected to everything and all things in that perfected state. So the way we get to that is we have to heal our heart, though. Because if the heart does not trust, even in an unconscious manner, meaning you may think like you are so loving, your heart is wide open, but yet, somewhere in your unconscious, subconscious mind, you had an old hurt that's still not necessarily allowing the heart to be open in certain situations. So everything is situational in the sense that, someone else walks in the room, I feel such a heart opening, which we're going to do a heart opening exercise for meditation, but they walk in with a different codex, a different, set of frequencies that reminds me of something that I still have something where my heart feels like it's going to it needs to be protected. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when injury has occurred as well, so they want me to address like any sort of trauma or injury, anything that we're carrying in today. Also, I'm going to have us look at in our meditation, because it's the same thing. It's like one of those 2 levels of protection I just talked about was like open. You weren't necessarily, because you were usually early childhood, you're so trusting, right? You're just like, whoa, you're playing, you're like, this is great. And then there's these interesting experiences that you go through because you're dropping into this experience to learn and to reclaim essence from old past timelines where you had issues going on. When those things occur in the past and they're carried into this lifetime and we're free and we're just playing around, that kind of takes us off guard when those situations happen around us. And then there leaves some sort of imprint or fracture in the field. And so when we come back around in the cycles of time, itself, meaning, maybe something happened around your dad's birthday and maybe I'm seeing like a dad partying, and it gets to later, 50 years later in your life, and around that certain date, that cycle of a birthday, a similar character, father or masculine, comes in with that set of characteristics. Makes sense? And that's probably connected.
That's interesting. So really, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, so really there's no such thing as something happening out of the blue.
No.
Because we were just talking about my foot and I'm thinking, how could I have just fractured just by putting my foot in my shoe? And I'm like, something must have occurred in that moment in time for it to bring something else in for that to happen. That's interesting.
And that's, the nature of these layers that we're getting into. So it seems that the more we evolve spiritually, this is my experience and what I've seen with clients, is that all of a sudden you get to these bigger versions of yourself that are expanding to where it's like, okay, you're 6-foot aura and you have mastered your soul. You're like this, you feel really like confident in the ability to love and be loved. And then you grow more out from the 6-foot aura. Now you're a 12-foot aura because you're holding the higher self, or you're holding your oversoul consciousness and you're like 30 feet out. So the bigger you keep growing, there's more of your aura, the new level of your aura that just got built out, but yet there's new territory for you to navigate. And I find the more that we grow spiritually and we're in this bigger packet of ourselves, that sometimes these phantom things happen, or these like weird occurrences happen that don't really make sense because there wasn't like a real injury that actually happened, but yet it feels like a real injury, or you had the experience where it literally had a break. Am I touching home on anybody?
Yeah, I think that growth is eternal, so we just find new and different things to explore and experience as you grow. And I don't care how long you've been around, there's still more.
Yeah. And especially visiting sacred sites. Do you notice for yourself, Farron, all the sacred sites you visited, it's just a memory coming to you right now where you had like a phantom pain come over you, or a weird sensation of visiting some of these spots?
Yeah, it's usually not pain. It's usually just a specific like vibration in the spot, or it's just all over.
Okay.
It's just my whole body it's like the vibration of it just shifts.
Yeah.
To match whatever I assume is the energy of the site.
I'm just bringing up sacred sites because, again, like this bigger level, if we've been at a sacred site in a past life and there was rituals going on or different types of ceremonies, and we then go visit them, even in meditation, for myself, I've had so many huge packets of plasma, of Akashic information come into me that it's been very visceral experience, where like I would feel sometimes my own personal stuff, but sometimes like I remember one time coming to a memory of driving through the bombings of Oklahoma, and I felt so much pain and, visceral feeling in my body. So again, as we grow bigger in the packet, what I'm saying is you may sense these new energy. I used to call them energy kinks. I guess for right now we will. These kinks in the matrix that need to go ahead and reviewed and loved on and repaired or digested. Okay. So we can go really big with this type of topic on like mass mind things that might come up, and also just not that you're small, but your individual assignments that might need to be revisited, even if you have already revisited a certain topic again and again, because you may have grown in your soul packet into the bigger packets of higher self, oversoul, monadic expression. This is what's going on. And the keys, again, the massive key is going to lie in our heart. Because in that our meditations that we do and our own individual practices, like being able to go in and witness these spaces and places, like get a little bit of, who, what, when, where, why, and then being able to go in and see from the heart space. And that heart space may represent your inner child, like your innocence. It may represent the innocence of your soul, of God. It's just that purity of understanding, like what you're witnessing or getting a download about who, what, when, where, why. That greater understanding from this space allows for the quick quickening and shifts.
When you're going through these shifts, right? I feel very tired lately, but in a good way. Not like in like, it's just kind of like you're saying, like the growth, like when you're a teenager and you're going through growth spurts and they sleep a lot because their body's regenerating so quickly. Is that something that happens in this? Because like I'm having a hard time. I feel like I have narcolepsy lately. I can't even
Right. And it's because you're underneath dense plasma that's trying to work itself through your aura. And I want my marker, so let me draw. So there's 2 seeds I want to draw for you.
Right, your little angels just like so beautiful.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah, the little sparkles are so sweet.
So pretty.
Okay. So one scene that Spirit wants me to draw is just looking at what I just talked about with like the individual soul and the expansion that happens. So like if this is your individual soul, right? And these are other individual souls over here. We're in our 6-foot packet. And then that soul at the heart cascades up to the one, who they really are, the oneness that we be, God consciousness, source conscious, whatever word, resonates for you. And then you start to grow into the higher self. So you can start to see that as we get in our bigger soul packet, we have bigger expression or bigger merger that's happening with the one. And we're also starting to overlap with more people. So where it used to be, we could have this like nice little, sacred space. As you grow into who you really are, you actually, again, it's like almost impossible to separate yourself from each other. So these 2 higher selves have now all this right here that connects, no matter what kind of protection they do, because they're meant to deal with what comes up. And I'm speaking to kinks. There's also beautiful expressions of like expansion and beauty and glory of coming together in this way. It's not all a kink, but I just overheard like, talking about our body and spirit's like, okay, we need to address that. So when we get to, this is high self, and this is just the formula that I was shown in my 20s. You take it or leave it. Once we get from higher self, we then start to go to oversoul. Right? And so you've got bigger amount crossing over. And also you're starting to really touch into the one. And both of us, me and Lastiel are now really connecting into the one. And sometimes that can be a little disorienting because you don't know who you are. And you can start seeing the grand tapestry of things, and you actually start to think the same thoughts, right? We enter the one mind and the one heart, and we start feeling each other. We start finishing each other's sentences, so we really start to expand out of this individual one. There's this little one, and then there's the big one. Mm-hmm. We start to expand into the I and I, the greater I. And so I'll just put one more, and then the monad is dealing with tribes. So then you got big tribes dealing with each other that are crossing over. And so just with this visual, I just wanted us to get the idea of, again, how important it is as we're growing. Oh, there's one more thing that we need to draw. As we're growing in our packet, because we're holding more soul essence. So the more work we do on ourselves means the more essence we reclaim back to home. The more sacred sites we go to, the more we reclaim our sacred soul essence, which is photonic light. Okay? Soul essence is also photonic light, the same, it's all the same at a level. So we're gathering all this light and we're literally turning into like a huge sun and then turning into a supernova and beyond. We keep growing it bigger and bigger and bigger. So that growth has so much light that wants to come home that it can feel like you're having a growth spurt, right? So as you start shifting and changing and you're inviting this next level to come in and to sift through the density patterns, it may feel like you got to take a lot of naps. It may feel congestion of like a phantom pain in your leg that nobody really can explain, or my shoulder. So all of that plasma, which is Akashic records, because each of those little plasmoids is holding information. And so it's trying to come in and it wants you to process it. And the best way, like we're going to get to today in our meditation, the best way to process it is through the heart of understanding and innocence and purity and clarity that, wait a minute, I can see how this is being created from cycles. I can see where this first originated and get that information. Breathe, we get in the heart, and I'm going to inviting, like we did last week, toning, singing, the more pure raw sound, channeling sound out is so, it can quicken things. And then last, the most important is crying. Even if you feel like you got nothing to cry about. If the body is still holding the density and it can't seem to get it to go ahead and siphon all the way through all of the meridians, all the energy centers, the aura itself, then it needs to be fully processed.
Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day and they were telling me how her daughter has asthma all of a sudden. And she's a dancer and it happens when she dances. And the first thing that came to mind, I'm like, because they're trying to figure out like what the body is doing. But in my mind, I saw it right away. I'm like, oh, it's not. So I'm like, it's her anxiety. I'm like, it's psychosomatic. And she was like, I don't know. That was the first thing that I could like envision her daughter dancing and see her while she's dancing. And I could see that it's not the body wasn't happy. It was her mind that was having her have a hard time breathing.
Right. And that's wonderful. I bring that up. So that's it, right? It's so the mental, that understanding for the solution, but also for the reason these physical ailments are setting themselves up is first has to be from the mind. And where we're at right now as a tribe called humanity, we are so in the mental body. So like the mental body is what's, really needs to be understood, right? For us to get ourselves feeling amazing. Whereas we used to be able to have like just quick ailments, or not ailments, quick medications, different types of things for certain topics, fix something. We're now in the ascension where it's like, no, you can do that, but we need you to understand it. Your spirit needs you to understand it.
But I wasn't trying to be rude and like, put that on her. It was just because she was telling me, but I could envision her daughter. And then as you were talking about it, I was like, oh, I kind of, maybe I should have. She took it and she didn't get like offended or anything. She said, oh, she does have anxiety, and maybe the anxiety, she has been diagnosed with anxiety, but then because she was telling me how they're giving her 2 pumps and this and that. And I was like, wait, but that the like spirit was telling me like, no, that's not like, say something, because there might be an intervention they might need.
Got it. So there's that. And noticing what's in the biofeedback of our life, right? So every now moment, we're being shown ourselves, even though we're seeing these other people. Because again, as we see, as it gets bigger, the net gets bigger, we're really processing the one. And we get to see the cast of characters or these individual souls all around us to help us understand what the one wants us to process. So we can share with others. But then for me, like, it's always all after a session, I'll ask, like, was that something really for me? And a lot of times it is, it was just, I was having this experience so that I can do the next level of whatever needs to be processed at the heart so that things can be flowing. Right. And when we finally get to this space and place, a healthy plateau of everyone around us is joyful and having a good time, then, this is where we have risen out of the water and we're in the air of the heart. And so we know when we're still underneath the water, when we're taking a lot of naps, when we're, there's a lot of showing up around us that's having issues or, feelings of trauma or anything's going on in their life. Again, it's all a reflection for us, a biofeedback to show us what still wants to be processed for ourselves and for the greater one. But yet it needs to be processed so we can rise into the heart, right? So water is our second energy center where the emotions are lying. Okay, so I'm kind of mixing several things in, but I hope I don't lose you.
So you get a UTI, that's the water.
Mm-hmm. And it's pissed off water. Mm-hmm.
Why? Yeah, I knew.
Yes.
Exactly. That's what I said last week. I wonder what I'm pissed off about. But it's water, so something is being sloshed around to
And
come out.
Yeah, and it wants to be processed and understood. So the denser, if something is physically affecting us, then it is dense photonic light particle. It is like so full of information. And usually the information is misunderstood. It hasn't fully been like taken in and gone, oh, I can see how this was created. Again, if all is self and I am creating my reality, then I find my hand in, oh, I'm still upset, unconsciously, typically, about something. So we're finding those places where those dense particles of light have heavy information that would be heavy enough that it would affect my body or affect my emotions or affect my mind, right? It's all still dense information packets of light. Once we get them all, and there may be a lot, there may be so many for months when you're on the ascension ride, when you literally are hitting your next growth, where you're about to grow up your central channel and really stabilize at a new position, where you were really good stabilized here, you're stabilized here. Now your spirit's like, we need you up here and speaking on the stage. And, and so you're going to have to like cycle through a more of that dense photonic light because it's going to start to come home to be processed. So when it's not coming home to be processed, it's sitting out places. Maybe it's sitting in your stack of books, a cluttered area in your house. Maybe it's sticking, in someone's bunion, I just heard. Maybe it's underneath the Vatican. It's laid its position somewhere until it's ready for you to process it and come home. Am I touching some stuff?
Well, yeah, mainly for me, it's, I never seem to get clarity. Things will go on and I can see my progress.
Yeah.
But there's no real concrete thing for me to pin it to.
Mm.
And that's obviously wonderful because some of the things you don't want to remember. But it's also frustrating because it feels like I'm not getting information. It feels like I'm not capable of receiving it.
Yeah, I could see it.
Whereas I can see the difference in how I react to times. And again, like I said, it's okay, and yet it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's, I just keep playing and doing what I do, and I think a lot of work gets done at night because I wake up exhausted.
Yeah.
And
Do you remember your dreams?
for years I didn't go in bed. And now I am dreaming again. I don't remember many of them, but I can wake up and kind of go, yeah, that was a good one, you
Mhm.
know, but they don't cement in my head.
Okay. Let's talk about that.
So yeah, I lay in bed at night, and I mean I worked a long time just to start dreaming again.
Yeah.
And now I say, it's great I'm dreaming. I'd like to remember them.
Yes. Even just one word,
Yeah,
one picture, one object.
yeah.
Good.
And so I think that the progression is probably I should spend a few minutes when I wake up and kind of try and cement.
It would be great to do a journal.
Yeah.
And even it's a picture, you know, sometimes you just draw like well, I think it was a pen, you know, and you just draw it. That's helpful. Because again, if it's not stuck out in the Vatican or outside your body, you know, it's in the 85% of the subconscious, unconscious memory laid in the body's blueprint. It's your body's holding the whole memories, the whole code that will eventually all come undone and you'll have full memory. We're not meant to not remember. For me, that's a big fat lie. It's like, when I know what I know now, it's no, we are here to remember and take our memory with us and ascend and be the master of that, because the memory is creating the reality. So if I keep getting mind washed and mind stripped, and I'm then taking on allowing, you know, the unconscious to rule the show of things that I don't want, and I can't even remember them, then they keep producing themselves again and again. That's just how this avatar works and how this game works. So as soon as we, again, learn to reclaim our memory, make peace with the memories, then the projection can be more joyful, more acceptance, and, you know, a beautiful scene. And then we realize, wait a minute, you know, I'm sitting at the eye of God. Let me create some better memories. And so you start the rewriting process, or the writing, like to literally be the writer of God and write beautiful scenes. And then we start to see them. Something funny.
Oh, this is a dream I had last night. It
Yeah, what
all
was
about
it?
this thing. There was a lot of closing portals and new worlds and old worlds, and when you were talking about not remembering, I'm like, I remember that's when it started to. There was a lot of that. It was like a lot of a lot of like time jumping.
Yes.
And closing up the things, closing that portal to the old memory. That you don't want.
Because it was just misunderstood, first of
Mhm.
all. And it was like layers of misunderstanding. Give it to us, Madette. Come on. That's why we're here.
I know all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just don't know how I know. I just know it. And just listening to it, I'm like, I've always felt like I've had to not belong, conform. So all the lies, like you just said, you were meant not to remember, was a lie. And I'm thinking, I was trying so hard to conform, but all along, my instincts were telling me it's not right. There's something not right. There's something off. But I've always been made to feel in my life like there's something wrong with me, for feeling that there's something wrong. But I've been right all along.
The whole time. That little girl knew.
I'm the one with the bunion, by the way, we were talking about yesterday. And the fact that everything, whatever else you said, I'm like, I know this is the stuff that my higher self has been trying to tell me. The one thing in my life I've always said is just never, the mantra was never give up, never give up,
Yeah.
never give up. Cause I'm like, I swallowed all these lies, but knowing that but not know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. I
didn't
get it.
know I was trying so hard to be what they wanted me to be, you know, whether it's society or the tribe or whatever role I was supposed to play. But all along, I know all this stuff.
Yes. And typically it's that deep inner child, that knows. And so I feel like that's what our meditation will really dive into, is really allowing that inner child to show you what she needs to show you of what was right. Because it is. So in the another imagery is that you come here to know everything that you're not. Let me say that again. You come here to know everything that you're not.
So all along, all the judgments and everything, it's just your high self saying, but I'm not that. That's not me. But I'm not
At the
that.
beginning, you come here to know everything you're not because you're working through the lower world. So you're working through the inversion. And so if this is the dome and it's inverted, and the reason, Thoth and, different ascended masters were trying to tell us what the pyramids had to get out is because it was all inverted and it's a game. So it's not like, oh man, this place. In the eye of God, when I sit with the eye of God, it's like, this is a game that you wanted to master. And I left you all the keys and I wrote it in the emerald tablets. And, like I got all, had many of my helpers go and give you guys all the keys. You just have to remember and look and listen. And so in the inverted of the dome below this firmament, we're here to, again, like I was saying at the beginning, remember as an inner child that has a huge heart of what you are not and say no. Now, you probably didn't have a set of parents or a school or all these different things that said, that you could say no to and be okay. So then there's a lot of conforming. But if you rose to the occasion, your teenage years, and you're like rebelling, or you had a set of parents who were evolved, and you chose to come into this next wave, which we're seeing that the next wave of evolution, and they allowed you to be your amazing revolting self that said, no, that's not the way this goes. And maybe they homeschooled you, all the things. Then you started to rise out of the inverted at the heart, really, and into this into the kingdom, into your head, into your heart, and realize that you're going to understand that a lot of people are still working through the Akashic records, all the cycles and memories of the inverted low world. Because as free will in this experiment, we were allowed to go as far left and as far right as we wanted to go. Away from God, away from love, to play, to experiment. So we're finding all of those places that we went far left and far right, or that the others in our life did. And again, if we've had a horrible life, then usually there's going to be a place in your Akash where you'll find where you did all those things to people. And so you're getting to, again, have deep compassion of the game and like, wow, I did all that. Okay, I forgive, Honopono, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And then you start, like I said, you rise from your lower body, right? Or the density of the body itself into the heart where that 0 point lies, where heaven's gate opens, where you get out of the lower firmament into the upper world and you're able to occupy bigger versions of yourself, higher self, oversoul, monad. You start to give yourself the glory of like really getting what's going on here. And other timelines where we didn't have the whitewashed memory happen, we knew all this, what I'm telling you. And for whatever reason, we're in this timeline where it got whitewashed again. And so we're in groups like this to like go, okay, wait. I remember I can be loving. Everybody can be loving. I can forgive all and start seeing them new. Because again, everybody's playing a part. They're all eternal souls. They're all perfect. Like every single being is the most amazing being ever. So they played a part. You forgive, you get back in your heart, you free your inner child, which we're going to do an exercise in our meditation to free any freeze frames like we did yesterday. That we're literally frozen in time as that little child wanted to say no. And she had to say yes. So that we can free up the heart of any frozen heart, broken heart, betrayal of the heart, all those things that are keeping people from this sacred doorway.
And see, it's so funny. I'm having like these, because I love my kids, and I want them to be free, but as a parent, there's just times we have to say no. And one of my biggest pet peeves is like when I say no and they insist upon it, but because then I feel this divide of like, but I know that the thing that I'm saying no to is for their own. So I don't know. What do you do in an instant like that, where it's like, I know that I'm doing this because I'm protecting you, or is them being insistent on it? Should we just like, okay, here, figure it out?
And that's your parenting style, like a lot of parents in this position, they're like, yeah, just let them stay in your own lane and let them learn and grow, and they'll learn from it if it was their not highest good. As well as you may have a star child like I do who really does do it and she's fine, and so it's like this learning.
It's like today, this is like literally my mirror of today.
Yeah.
And then so it's like I'm seeing like that little figure is my son, and he was just like, it was so silly. He wanted to take his phone to school, but I was like, no. And like, so as you're saying this, I'm just hearing myself just repeat the no.
And he's you at that age. And in this now moment, and we do our meditation, you can shift it and the whole timeline changes.
Well, it did shift, because then I went back to, it was like, so then I see this figure here, and it's just so funny that I'm like, oh my goodness, here it is again.
Yeah. Farron, did you want to say something?
Well, I always have been absolutely infuriated about why we can't come in with the basics. Don't touch the hot stove. I mean,
I did that. An iron.
But then again, I look at it and it's like we only learn through experience.
Yeah.
So I can tell you 1,000 times the stove is hot, and they'll go, oh, okay. And when they touch it, it's like, oh, now I get it. My brother was that way. He had little boys.
Yeah.
Don't climb on the bookcase. And he literally said to them, why would they do that? I told them not to. Why in the world would they do? It's like they're
through experience. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so that is I get your dichotomy about yes and no. I mean, you're trying to protect them, but like you said, maybe they don't need protection.
Yeah.
And then it's confusing, because as a parent, like, we're told how, like, we give them boundaries so they can learn to the boundaries, but then at the same time, it's like you should let them figure, so
know what a great way is that I found my parenting style is choice. So I explain where I'm coming from, and they know, my family knows like what I'm sharing with you. It's not like I just keep it here.
Yeah.
So I'll tell them, okay, you're showing me your 13-year-old self right now, and I go through the memory of why I'm feeling so much about it. And then I said, no, what are you going to do? It's your choice. Like, you sit with that, so being honest and transparent with them, but then giving them choice. So like, like we're saying with the experience, because then through their experience, they're going to know. Right. Yeah. Okay. Any other 2 cents before I go to see if I can do the meditation? I don't know if they're wanting me yet.
We always talk about what happens to us and what we create, but sometimes we create the experience for somebody else. And I think, like, I have it at some point, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to,
Mhm.
gonna work on that, but like you're like the bad guy in quotes. You create that situation to maybe either learn how to forgive yourself, or you're just offering it to the other person, regardless of how painful it is for you.
Sometimes you're in the monad or not the one of the witness,
Mhm.
and you're just holding space with no real part other than to witness what's happening in the characters. Sometimes you're meant to jump in, even though you may typically say something that's right, let's say, and you're playing a part of the right guy, and sometimes you're in the part to play the bad guy.
Right.
Because you
say
get
the
to,
wrong thing,
yeah.
or do
and
the
y-
wrong thing.
I'll witness, like spirit will tell me, you got to say something now, but say it like this. I'm like, really? Just do it. I'm like, and I'm
Like,
rude
okay.
or something, and I'm going, what is that about? And it's what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah,
sometimes you're here to like play the part, you know?
it's like you can be brutally honest and they'll hate you for it, but they really needed to hear it.
Yeah. That was the moment, that frequency, that subset of, light particles needed to get undone in that way. And then you
Mhm.
got to feel it. I mean, so as long as we're aware, I feel this ascension, this beautiful ascension to the heart, when we're aware, either in it or at least immediately right outside of it, we're good. We're growing.
Mhm.
And even the days we're not, we're totally upside down. We're
No, but
still
it was
good.
nice because they let a whole, like you're saying that, and I called the school and I spoke to the secretary and I told her what happened. And then she ended up sharing something with us that was when she was 12, she got into argument with her mom, and her mom kept saying, say I love you, say goodbye. And she's like, "Mm." And her mom passed away. And she dealt with that
Oh.
for so long. And she's like, don't ever leave. And she
Mm.
explained to us how she carried for so long, but that she ended up understanding that her mom knew she was just a child. And her mom never felt that thing towards her, like upset to her, because she, and like at the end, so it was like this whole like thing so it was like all these layers. And then my son, like, he came and gave me a big hug and was like, I'm so sorry. And then I was so sorry. And then and then they, so it was really beautiful because of this one thing, and we
Right.
shared it. It just,
And then we can see.
yeah. And
So
then,
as long as you keep following your heart and you keep being transparent and you're respectful of the game of the other's hearts, and we keep being transparent, we're going to see this onion bloom. We're going to see this rose come undone in such a beautiful way. And then that's when, again, all hearts are open. And if it's not the whole population for you, because that's not your mission here, then your projection of your new world that you're creating in the new world will be at like 100 people, and we're all a heart opened, which is right now, that's how my world is with you all. It's like, I'm so grateful.
Yeah. To me, what growing and expanding is all about, it's like a grassroots change. Because if you can get your little cluster to be open, giving, loving, then they'll slowly filter that out.
Yeah.
And eventually, even though
Yeah.
you don't personally feel like you're doing very
Oh,
much,
you are.
but it's like letting the guy in front of you and driving down the road. He'll let somebody in.
Yeah.
It's pay it forward. I love that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
That's so fun.
And so,
Right.
That to me is
It's where we're at. This is where we're at.
Like you
I can't do anything with this big stuff out there. Me carrying a sign in the street is not too diddly squat. So you just start here.
Yes.
And spread that as far as you can spread.
Yes. I love it. So are we ready? Yeah. Okay. So let's get comfortable. Yes. Use the restroom if you need to.